At the end of the last episode, Mukata took the slime Sui as his new familiar, and he received a blessing from Menari, the wind goddess, thanks to her uncontrollable sweet tooth. With the blessing, Mukata becomes immune to most status ailments, and it even boosts his magic. He starts learning earth magic, but even with his blessing his progress is slow. Fel suspiciously takes him for a ride, and they end up at the entrance to a dungeon. Mukata is confused why they are there, but Fel tells him that they are there to get experience. Just like when he learned fire magic, he had to fight against goblins. Mukata tries to sneak away, but Fel pulls him back. Looking at the dungeon, Mukata is terrified, wanting to leave. Fel tells him he has already explored the dungeon and there are only weak monsters inside. But Mukata doesn't believe him. Fel insists on this method, because Mukata's own training hasn't produced much results. He tells him not to worry since he will protect him with his barrier, but tells him that one day he may not be there, so he will need to be able to defend himself. Mukata ends up agreeing but decides that he needs to prepare before they go in. He prepares a feast of all kinds of food from his shop. Fel is curious what he is doing, and Mukata reveals that food from the other world gives temporary buffs, reminding Fel of how he felt stronger after eating the walking stick. Since he doesn't know which foods boost which stats, he prepares to eat a bit of everything, and then give the leftovers to him and Sui. He starts eating, adding a bit of each of the dishes, and Fel consensus that his stats are increasing. He gives Sui some of the food and he eats the entire plate, as if the trash that Sui eats also gives a buff. But Mukata reveals that the trash actually helps Sui level up. Mukata finishes off with some dessert and he ends up completely stuffed. When he checks his stats, he can see that all his stats have increased by around 20%. And Sui and Fel's stats have also increased around the same amount. Fel suggests they are ready to go, but Mukata is still a little worried. They start to enter, but Mukata makes sure to remind Fel to cast his barrier. They walk slowly and Fel starts pushing him along. Fel ends up shoving him and he comes across a slime. He feels bad about attacking a slime, but Sui spits out acid and takes it out. Fel praises his attack and thinks that Sui could even be unique. More slimes approach and Mukata uses his stone bullet spell, taking one out with a single hit, and Sui takes out the other one. Mukata notices the slime dissolving, and Fel explains that the dungeon is like a living creature that will absorb anything that dies inside it. Mukata dreads the thought of dying inside, but they head deeper inside. Fel warns him about horned rabbits coming up next, and they soon charge at him, and he panics and swings his sword wildly. There are goblins on the next level, and Mukata casts his fireball out of reflex, but Fel reminds him he is training his earth magic. As they head deeper, Mukata wonders why they are getting attacked, because normally monsters are too afraid to even approach Fel. But Fel tells him that dungeons are different, and the monsters inside will attack regardless. Fel warns him about kobolds on the next level, and they turn out to be scary wolf-like creatures. Mukata is terrified and runs for it, but Fel tells him he is too slow to escape. Mukata uses his stone bullet and manages to take both of the kobolds out. Mukata gets proud of himself, but Fel says he still has more to learn, and Mukata gets hyped up to get even stronger. They head to the final floor of the dungeon, and Fel mentions there should be about 10 kobolds, but Mukata is shocked to see that there are quite a few more. He wants to give up, but Fel drags him back. Fel tells him that together with Sui, he can take them out. Mukata doesn't believe him, but Sui is pumped. Fel ends up kicking him off, and all the kobolds turn toward him. Mukata is terrified, and the kobolds charge at him, but he is protected by Fel's barrier. Sui attacks using his acid, and Mukata starts attacking with his earth them out, but more charge at him, and he starts shooting stones from both hands. Together with Sui they manage to take out most of the kobolds. The remaining kobolds run, but they get blown away as the Kobold King appears. Mukata is terrified, barely dodging its attack. He runs and shoots his stone bullets, but they seem to just bounce off the king. He rapid fires with both hands, but it has little effect on the beast. Fel mentions that his barrier might not be enough to block the attacks, so he encourages Mukata not to get hit. As the Kobold King prepares its attack, Mukata casts an impressive stone blast that lands on the beast's head. Although injured, the beast gets back up. As Mukata tries to attack, he runs out of mana. The beast swings at him, but his barrier activates. Fel reveals that he lied, saying his barrier would never break to such a weak attack. As the beast struggles with the barrier, Sui comes to the rescue, attacking with his acid, and taking out the Kobold King. The beast is reduced to a pile of goop, and Sui starts to glow, but Mukata ends up passing out. Fel carries him out of the dungeon, and Sui worries about him. Fel notices that Sui can suddenly speak. Sui can't wait to talk with Mukata and wonders when he will wake up. Fel says they can talk while they wait, and Sui happily calls him Uncle Fel. Fel is annoyed at being called an uncle, but Sui mentions how he is big and strong, and is always taking care of them, so he sees him as an uncle. Fel is proud for a moment but snapped out of it and refuses to be called an uncle. He leaves to get a snack, but quickly returns to remind Sui to stay in his barrier, and Sui insists that he is Uncle Fel. When Mukata wakes up he panics, but soon realizes that he is outside. Sui comforts him and starts talking to him, and Mukata is shocked to hear him talking. Suai explains that after they beat the king, he started being able to talk. He calls him master and Makoto finds him to be even more adorable. He checks on Suai's stats, and sees that he has leveled up, and even gained the acid bullet skill. He checks his own stats and finds that he gained 4 levels, and now has the earth magic skill. However, when he compares their stats, he sees that he is weaker than Sui. Sui wonders if he is sad for being weaker, but Makoto is happy to see how much he has grown. Fell returns and Makoto wonders where he went. Fell mentions how he was passed out for a while, and he got hungry, so he went to find some food, but says that he prefers his cooking. So he asks for some food as a reward for helping Makoto learn earth magic. Makoto is annoyed that he lied about his barrier breaking, but Fell reasons that it was just to help him. Makoto gives in, and decides to make some food. Seeing as he is tired from using all his magic, he decides to eat something nourishing. He prepares some eggs and some leftover rock bird, combining them together, to create a delicious dish. Fell instantly devours it, amazed at the use of eggs, and Sui finds it delicious as well. Fell asks for seconds, and Sui joins in to ask for more, while Makoto wonders how he ended up with 2 familiars that both eat so much. After their meal Makoto wonders if Fell has talked with Sui, and Sui mentions how he talked a lot with Uncle Fell when he was asleep. Makoto laughs at Fell being called an uncle, and Fell gets mad, reminding Sui not to call him uncle. Makoto keeps making fun of Fell, saying compared to Sui who is only 2 weeks old, he is definitely an uncle. Sui insists on calling him uncle, but Fell yells at him and Sui begins to cry. Makoto calls him mean, and Fell has no choice but to let Sui continue to call him Uncle Fell. But that's where this part ends. As always, if you like what you see, subscribe to the channel.